Turkey, vote counting continues after an election day with a high voter turnout. Unofficial polls show Recep Tayyip Erdogan leading the race for the presidency. In Palestine, the Israeli regime violated the ceasefire by resuming attacks against the Gaza Strip. And in Ecuador, Parliament session to renew its authorities. The new board of directors will govern the remaining 2 years of the current legislature. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Turkey, with more than 80% turnout, the electoral day closed. Unofficial polls give an advantage to the incumbent Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The more than 50,000 polling stations set up for this day of presidential and parliamentary elections throughout the Eurasian country closed their doors at 5 p.m. local time to begin counting the votes. Preliminary non-official results show that so far, more than 90% of the votes have been counted. Recep Tayyip Erdogan leads the electoral race with over 49% of the votes, followed by opposition candidate Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu with over 44%. In the parliament elections also held today, Erdogan's party, the Justice and Development Party, leads the race with over 269 seats. Since neither candidate seemed to be able to secure more than 50% of the votes, a runoff election will be likely held on May 28th. According to the electoral schedule, the first results are expected to be announced around midnight local time, while the official announcement will be made on Friday, May 19th. Our president and candidate for re-election, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, hailed his nation's democratic maturity following an election day with peace and quiet. On Twitter, Erdogan said they were pleased that the favor of the nation is reflected in the ongoing vote count. The incumbent asked all of his voters and colleagues to stay at the ballot boxes until the results are officially finalized. Erdogan ended his tweet congratulating all the citizens who voted in the name of democracy and took part in the election work. In Russia, according to the Defense Ministry spokesperson Igor Konashenkov, Russian forces have struck Western armed depots and Ukrainian troops in the western city of Ternopil and the eastern town of Petropavlivka.
The Russian army delivered a strike with high-precision, long-range air and sea-based weapons against the Ukrainian armed forces near Ternopil and Petropavlivka in Dnipropetrovsk region, against Ukrainian armed forces units and storage sites of ammunition, weapons and military equipment received from the Western countries. The aim of the strike has been achieved. All designated facilities have been hit.
On Sunday, Cyclone Mosha began to crash ashore at the Bangladesh-Myanmar border, uprooting trees and bringing driving rain to a region home to hundreds of thousands of Rohingya refugees. With winds of up to 194 kilometers per hour, Mosha struck between Cox's Bazar, where nearly 1 million Rohingya refugees live in camps made up of largely of flimsy shelters, and Myanmar's Sidwe, the official said. The U.S. Joint Typhoon Warning Center earlier said Mosha had winds of up to 259 kilometers per hour, equivalent to a Category 5 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. Thousands of people left Sidwe on Saturday, boarding trucks, cars, and tuk-tuks and heading for higher ground inland as forecasters warned of a storm surge of up to 3.5 meters. Rain and wind were felt in Myanmar's commercial hub Yangon, some 500 kilometers away, residents said on Sunday. The G7 plans to launch a partnership plan to diversify supply chains to reduce dependence on trade with China. Following talks between G7 finance chiefs in the coastal city of Niigata, Japanese Finance Minister Shunichi Suzuki said that during the pandemic there were problems with supply chains being too concentrated in one place. Suzuki added that lower middle-income countries could take on a bigger role and benefit from this. Although the ministers did not directly mention reducing their relations with China and Russia, they focused on a new framework for clean energy relations. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen noted the recent disruptions in the global economy and the importance of diversified and resilient supply chains. At the end of the financial negotiations on Saturday, the ministers reaffirmed their commitment to the sanctions against Russia and affirmed that they are working together to enforce them, but did not announce any new concrete measures to address sanctions evasion. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. The Israeli government violated the ceasefire by resuming attacks against the Gaza Strip. The attack took place a few hours after Egypt had managed to mediate a ceasefire pact between Israel and Palestine on Saturday. The Israeli armed forces claimed their defenses just counterattacked two alleged Palestinian aggressions. According to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office, although Tel Aviv signed the truce, it would respond if threatened. Local media reported that after the signing of the agreement, Palestinians took to the streets to celebrate the victory of the resistance, which succeeded in making the Zionist regime negotiate the ceasefire. Now there is a tense calm between the parties after the violation of the temporary peace reached by Egypt. In Palestine, more than 100 buildings have been destroyed in the Gaza Strip in 6 days of military aggression by Israeli forces. Occupation warplanes hit on Saturday a number of Palestinian homes in North, Central and South Gaza. Local media report that residential buildings have been completely destroyed, while some 940 homes and some 49 properties have suffered major damage throughout the Strip, but mainly in Gaza City. Hundreds of Palestinians surveyed the damage to their homes on Sunday. For most of them, it was impossible to recognize their homes as many were completely destroyed.
When I arrived in the morning and saw my house, I was shocked, stunned. I couldn't find any of the features of the house. The house was destroyed, my furniture, the bed, my children's clothes and books, our lives. I found nothing to live with, nothing to live for. I don't know how I will build the house again. I have been building the house stone by stone for more than 15 years. I only finished building and started living in it 5 months ago. Now I came back to find it one with the ashes.
What truce? Now the truce is over, and we have returned to our home. Where will we stay? Our neighbors, where will they stay? The children in the schools lost their books. My nephews lost their books. What are they going to do? And they say go back to school. How am I going to teach them? If there are no uniform for them to wear, what do I do? Does anyone have money to buy them books and clothes again? I don't know what to say. What truce? A truce after the destruction.
On Sunday, Sudan's warring parties were to resume talks in the port city of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. The aim is to create plans to deliver humanitarian aid and withdraw forces from civilian areas. Sudanese authorities announced the readiness of Khartoum and Wadi Sidna airports, as well as Port Sudan's harbor to receive humanitarian assistance. On the other hand, the Sudanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs condemned the holding of a special session of the Human Rights Council where it discussed the exceptional circumstances in that African nation. In a statement, the foreign ministry said the protection and development of human rights in Sudan is a national issue of great importance and it is at the top of the state's priorities. For the last month, the army and the rapid support forces have been fighting fierce battles, leaving over 750 people dead, more than 5,000 injured, and 900,000 displaced. In Sudan, more than 500,000 people have fled Khartoum alone. Hospitals in the area have been bombed and looting has been rampant, while residents suffer chronic shortages of food, electricity and medicine. Refugees increase every day at the Argentine border crossing on the way to the southern Egyptian city of Aswan. Let's listen.
There is no solution. I do not see a solution to end the war. The rapid support forces do not want to surrender to the army, and the army is unable to change the situation with the rapid support forces. And we are lost between them. We left our houses, families, papers, diplomas, and our interests. We left our country.
We keep hearing that there will be a truce in the next 7 days, but when you go out in the streets, you find bullets everywhere. So when they announce a truce, we don't really expect the situation to be 100% secure and the fighting rates on.
TeleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat, dial 461 and enjoy Latin American alternative broadcasts. One final short break and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back from the South. Ecuador's parliament met on Sunday to renew its leadership. The new board of directors will govern the remaining 2 years of its current legislature. This process of term renewal in the National Assembly takes place amidst the call for an impeachment trial against Guillermo Lasso for corruption. The parliamentary body stated that legislators must appoint the first and second vice presidents, as well as 4 members of the Legislative Administration Council, responsible for planning legislative activities and establishing priorities for dealing with legal bills. They will also appoint the Secretary General and the Pro Secretary and swear in the new members of the Council of Citizen Participation and Social Control, elected by popular vote last February. The Brazilian government will relaunch agrarian reform programs aimed at redistributing land classified as non-productive and will be handed over to farmer families. The announcement was made by Agricultural Development Ministry during the 4th edition of the National Agrarian Reform Fair organized in Sao Paulo by the Landless Farmers Movement of Brazil. The authorities of this entity highlighted the role played by this movement in the struggle for agrarian reform and as a producer of food for the domestic market, always thinking of the most deprived in Brazil. The Agricultural Development Ministry pointed out that these measures will not only be taken but will also include financing and technical assistance for farmers and the promotion of agricultural cooperatives. In Sao Paulo, at least 50,000 people are homeless, and the conservative mayor's office is carrying out repressive policies against this sector of the population. In response, homeless people and human rights organizations protested in front of the city hall. Our correspondent Ignacio Lemus was there with the details.
Winter is coming, and Sao Paulo's mayor's office, led by conservative Ricardo Nunes, is not providing solutions to the city's housing crisis. Quite the contrary.
They are taking away the floats. They are taking away the tents of the homeless people, taking away their documents, clothes, medicines. There is an extreme violence and elimination process. On top of that, the governor of the state of Sao Paulo wanted to take the population to the countryside to work on fields, which will be slave labor.
With record cash on hand, the mayor's office of the capital with the country's largest gross domestic product cut back on long-standing initiatives to protect the vulnerable population on the streets.
What Bolsonaro and his supporters left behind were people on the streets, going hungry, freezing to death, people with no rights, education, culture, or housing. So we are in a very vulnerable situation and the City Hall is not solving it. I filed a protocol with the Public Prosecutor's Office about the City Hall closing a tent downtown during the low-temperature operation.
Official numbers from Sao Paulo warn about a crisis with 50,000 people living on the streets, but human rights organizations claim that real numbers might be even more shocking.
Major Ricardo Nunes is destroying the social assistance service and has put in place a policy of removing the tents from the homeless population, and that will generate a gigantic level of barbarism. We know that the cold period will start now in the city. The tents help people not to die frozen on the streets, and what can happen is a tragedy much worse than in the last few years with the cold wave that we will have in the middle of the year.
After marching from the city hall to the municipal chamber, hundreds of homeless people, communities and human rights organizations were left waiting for urgent solutions for the vulnerable population on the streets of Sao Paulo.
Ignacio Lemus y Julia Nassif para TeleSUR.
In Brazil, the Landless Rural Workers Movement celebrated the 3rd day of the National Agrarian Reform Fair. The activity promotes the importance of land distribution to ensure people's food security. This is the main event of dialogue between the Landless Rural Workers Movement and the population of the cities in Brazil. It takes place in the Whitewater Park in the city of Sao Paulo. It was inaugurated on Thursday, May 11th, after 5 years, and it is attended by around 1,200 vendors with 500 tons of food grown in settlements and camps in 23 Brazilian states. The meeting marks the beginning of the celebrations for the 40th anniversary of the Landless Rural Workers Movement, which was founded in January 1984. It is a way of presenting society not only the agrarian reform model defended by the organization, but also that which it produces in practice and whose architects run the risk of being evicted. And before ending, let's quickly review results that are out in Turkey's general elections. These are non-official figures provided by polling agencies. Also bear in mind these are early results, so the number might very well change as counting continues. So far, Recep Tayyip Erdogan leads the electoral race with 49.76% of the votes, followed by opposition candidate Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu with 44.49%. This is with 95.40% of the votes counted so far. As we said, voter turnout has been high. 88.67% of the electoral roll came out to vote. In parliament elections also held today, Erdogan's party, the Justice and Development Party, leads the race with over 269 seats. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief from you. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.